The Sun Devils 2024 recruiting class is getting ready to check in, and we're here to discuss what their possible impact could be in their freshman years.
You are Locked On Sun Devils, your daily podcast on the Arizona State Sun Devils.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Sun Devils podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Richie Bradshaw, and I will be your guide for everything Arizona State Sun Devils. A shout out to my everydayers who are here every day, and thanks for making us your first listen of the day. Don't forget to hit like, hit subscribe, and turn on notifications wherever you're getting your shows. Stay in touch with the podcast by following me on Twitter at RichieBrads36, the podcast at LO_Sun Devils. And if you have not hit the subscribe button on YouTube, do me a favor, hit that button. We're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers before the season starts. We are currently at 831. We have made quite the progress over the last month, probably close to 50 new subscribers. I appreciate you guys. Help us get to that number, and we will find a way to celebrate together. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Look, the playoffs are done, and sports just aren't sporting like we want them to. But this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or bonus daily. That's right, there's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back in. Today, we are going to be taking a look at this incoming recruiting class for the Sun Devils. The class is the number 48 recruiting class in the country. Arizona State is adding 18 players to the roster, or 17 players, We'll talk about what's going on with that 18th player. 17 players to the roster. This is just a freshman class, by the way, and 2 4-star recruits. Last year, Arizona State brought in a pretty quality recruiting class that was led by Jayden Rashada. It was a class that needed a lot of developing behind the scenes and guys that could inherit big roles this year, like Keith Abney or Kyson Brown or Keontae Bradley. There's a lot of guys from last year's class who could have big roles this year. Are we looking at a similar situation to this year's recruiting class? Could we see guys get developed behind the scene? Are we going to see guys that find immediate roles for the team? Well, that's what we're here to talk about. So let's go ahead and jump in to the strengths of this recruiting class, things that we could see end up panning out sooner rather than later. First of all, the biggest strength of the class has to be your top 2 recruits, your 4-star players, guys that were gems of this class and potential cornerstones of the team for years to come. The number 1 recruit in the class for Arizona State was running back Jason Brown. Brown coming from O'Day out in Seattle, Washington, a 91 grade on 24/7, which is where we go for all of our stuff here on Locked On Sun Devils. He is about 5'8", 194 pounds. He's a good pass catcher. He's a good runner. He is going to a room that's very deep at running back, but a room that could also really be different in 2024. You're behind Cameron Scanaboo, DeCarlos Brooks, Raleek Brown as of right now, and potentially other guys. All 3 of them could be gone after this year. That is going to leave Jason Brown a huge opportunity to find the field in 2025. Tight end Jayden Fortier is somebody that I've talked about before as a player I'm really excited about. Coming from Tualatin, I believe is how you say it, Oregon. He is a 90 overall recruit from 24/7, 6'5", 220 pounds, 2-way player. He played some safety on defense as well, but obviously his biggest impact is going to be at the tight end position. Now, I don't know when Fortier is going to be 100% ready. He underwent ACL surgery. As far as I know, he didn't actually tear it. I think it was more of like a cleanup surgery and just kind of precautionary. But I don't know if he's going to be ready at the start of camp. But when he does get 100% clear, there's a very good chance we see a lot of Fortier this year. The tight end position is wide open for the Sun Devils. You've got Cameron Harpole. you've got Shimon Mateer, you've got Marqueston Douglas, and there's a really good opportunity here for Fortier to come out and be the number one tight end for the team. He's definitely one of the key fixtures for the future. Between those two, you really like what you're doing for the offensive side of the football. You also really got a lot deeper along the offensive line, particularly the inside, where you add Terrell Kim, who was a really highly graded kid from this recruiting class from Medford, Oregon. He was an 89, so he was right there for being a 4-star, 6'3.5", 340 pounds. He's already ready to be plugged into the offense. You also added Semisi Tonga, who is going to be coming into this class and could be depth this year, 6'4", 310 pounds. I would imagine they are going to be looking at rotating guys this year, and he could find himself on the field. Now, you also have Champ Westbrooks in this recruiting class, but I've spoken with Champ. If you have not checked out that podcast, go ahead and check it out. Champ is awesome. We even talk about the LeBron versus Michael Jordan debate. But Westbrooks has told me that he is going to be moving to the offensive tackle position. He's got to put some weight on at 6'3.5", 248 pounds. I think this might be a year to develop him, but again, who knows? And then the one guy that is on here is Suka Saluni. I believe he decommitted and went to Arizona. I don't think he's still at Arizona State. He's not listed on the team website. I know that much. So you got depth along the interior of the line. And then you added some ridiculous depth in the secondary. Just at the corner position, you added Rodney Bimage, Chris Johnson Jr., Tony Lewis Nkuba, and Plas Johnson. Johnson, by the way, two-way player, played receiver out at, was it Chaparral? I can't remember where he was playing. Chaparral. I'm so smart. So he's got ball skills. But they add depth at corner. You also added Kyan McDonald to the safety spot. And Martell Hughes was part of the recruiting class. However, he is moving to the linebacker position according to the team's website. But you added 6 players, if you include Hughes, to this secondary. You added 4 guys to the corner position, which Arizona State is going through a big transition right now. You lost your top 3 guys from last year in Ro Torrance, Ed Woods, D Ford. You also lost Jordan Clark. You are going through a makeover at corner. And he brought in some really important transfers. LT Welsh is here. Javen Robinson is here. Cole Martin will take on the role of Jordan Clark. There is guys who are going to be plugged into the secondary, and all 3 of those guys could be your day one starters. But don't count out the 2 guys who caught my attention in spring ball. And granted, they were able to enroll early, so we haven't seen some of the other guys, but Tony Lewis Nkuba and Rodney Bimage were standouts in spring ball. They could find themselves onto the field. But you have really good depth in the secondary. There's a potential that this ends up being the core of your unit for 2025 or 2026. It was a class that they went all in on adding talent. But Bimage and Nkuba really caught my attention. If you listen to the podcast, you know I am a big fan of Chris Johnson Jr. He is someone that could profile as a number 1 corner if they're able to develop him and get him moving. Plas Johnson, again, has those ball skills as a former receiver at Chaparral. He could turn into a turnover machine for you. You have Kyan McDonald, who I will admit I don't know too much about, but he's part of the depth back there. And then Hughes moving a linebacker, that's almost out of necessity because of how deep the secondary is. And they look at Martell Hughes and they go, look, we want to get you on the field. We just feel like you might be someone that we can play closer to the line of scrimmage and see what you can do there. It's a lot of depth to a secondary that is reloading. You lost your top 3 guys plus Jordan Clark. They needed to get younger in the secondary. And you've got guys who are coming in for their second year. I already mentioned Keith Abney and Keontez Bradley, who could find big roles for themselves. But you needed to continue to get younger. because a big year for Welsh, Cole Martin, or Javen Robinson could see them go to the next level. They have that potential to play at an NFL professional level. Cole Martin, you would get at least 2 years. He is a true sophomore, so that's good news. But Welsh and Robinson could both declare. So having that young depth is key. The interior of the line, you are going to need guys. You are going to lose Ben Coleman. You're going to lose Leif Fotanu. Whatever ends up happening at the right guard spot, it's unclear right now, which you could plug in a Terrell Kim or Semisi Tonga to potentially be those starters. Having that depth in the interior is very important because it's kind of wide open right now at right guard, and it's wide open for the future of the team. Having those young weapons in Jason Brown and Jayden Fortier, again, I don't know how much we see them this year, but they're talented enough that you definitely justify them being able to get on the field sooner rather than later. That's the strengths of this recruiting class. And I think it's a very, very good recruiting class for Arizona State. It's deep, it's talented, and guys that could end up seeing very important roles for the future. But there's, of course, areas of need for the team, which we're going to take a look at in just a moment. This is the Locked On Sun Devils podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to talk to you about our friends over at Ibotta. It's summertime, which means it's barbecue season. Stock up on all your favorite grilling favorites and earn cash back on every purchase when you use Ibotta. So you won't have to choose between burgers or hot dogs. You can get both. Ibotta is a free app that lets you earn cash back every time you shop. Earn on hundreds of items from groceries to beauty supplies, even toys. So you can make sure that you're beating inflation no matter what you're purchasing. The average Ibotta user earns $256 a year. That could cover the cost of an entire shopping trip, that flight that you've been eyeing, or a fancy dinner that you've been craving. Other apps give you points that don't amount to much. With Ibotta, you earn cash back that you can withdraw to your bank account, PayPal, or gift cards. Simply add offers in the app, upload your receipt, and voila, the money is yours. You can save on over 2,400 brands and shop at over 1,000 retailers, including some of your favorites in grocery stores, Lowe's, Macy's, Sephora, Best Buy, and more. It's time you join the over 50 million users who use Ibotta to earn cash back every time it's time to shop. Right now, Ibotta is offering our listeners $5 for trying both Ibotta by using the code LOCKEDONCollege when you register. Just go to the App Store or Google Play Store and download the free Ibotta app to start earning. Use code LOCKEDONCollege. That's Ibotta, IBOTTA, in the Google Play or App Store, and use code LOCKEDON. Also want to talk to you about our friends over at Factors Fresh. Warmer, sunny days are calling. Fuel them up with Factors no prep, no mess. Meet your wellness goals in time for summer thanks to the menu of well-crafted, chef-created meals with options like Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, and even Keto. Factors Fresh, never frozen meals are dietitian approved and ready to eat in just 2 minutes. So no matter how busy you are, you'll always have time to enjoy nutritious, great tasting meals. Make today the day that you kickstart that healthier routine. What are you waiting for? With 35 different meals and more than 60 add-ons to choose from every week, you'll always have new flavors to explore. Crush your wellness goals this May with dietitian-approved meals, ingredients that you can trust. Make your day delicious from breakfast to dessert. Stay fueled with easy, nutritious options. Treat yourself to restaurant-quality meals that feature premium ingredients like filet mignon, shrimp, and black-ended salmon. Keep kitchen time to a medium. Factor meals are ready in 2 minutes. No shopping, prepping, cooking, or cleanup. Enjoy effortless support for your lifestyle. Choose from 6 menu preferences to help you manage calories, maximum protein intake, avoid meat, or simply eat well balanced. Head to factorymeals.com/lockedoncollege50 and use code lockedoncollege50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month. That's code lockedoncollege50 at factormeals.com/lockedoncollege50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month when your subscription is active. Wherever you get your podcast, hit like, hit subscribe, and turn on notifications so you get an update whenever we post new content. I appreciate you guys for tuning in and making us your first listen of the day. Shout out to my everydayers who are here every day. And if you have not hit subscribe on YouTube, do me a favor, go hit that subscribe button. We're trying to get to 1,000 before the season starts. If we are able to get there, we will find a way to celebrate as a page. Back into our show now, excuse me, and taking a look at some areas of need for the team. This is more about the future of the Sun Devils team, but there are some needs. The one that stands out to me the most is getting younger at wide receiver. Now, you've got Zachariah Sample coming in, who could be kind of that like a do-it-all weapon for you. He's a little spark plug at about 5'8", 160 pounds. He's definitely someone that you're going to be looking to get a little bit bigger, but he's really, really fast, and he's got the skills to play on the special team side of things. You could see him turn into a kind of weapon that you get involved a handful of times a game. Just put the ball in his hands kind of guy. Excuse me. Beyond him, there's nothing else. This was not a big recruiting class at the wide receiver position, which I don't think we were expecting too much with all the veterans that are still on the team, but you need to add some guys, especially because you're losing 4 veterans with Trey O'Mary, Melcon Stovall, Xavier Guillory, and I think this is Jake Smith's last year of eligibility. He may have one more because of the NCAA's grant to give an extra year for the guys who were ruled ineligible last year. I'm not sure on Jake Smith. But if we include him, that's 4 guys. And Jordan Tyson, a redshirt sophomore, could declare if he has the big year that we're expecting. So you're looking at a big-time makeover at the receiver position. Now, you do have a really, really good 4-star next year with wide receiver Adrian Wilson. He is likely your wide receiver 1. And he got some young guys like Caleb Black and Corbin Hendricks. There's definitely some guys here to play around with and see what they can end up doing. And of course, you'll attack the transfer portal. But you need to continue adding to this young core, especially since you're getting key cornerstones through your recruiting class. You've got your number 1 tight end of the future. You got your number 1 running back of the future. You have your number 1 receiver of the future. You just got to keep going. And I mean, they do have plenty of receivers that are added the next year. I know that Cameron Dyer is somebody that people are very interested in because he is moving from the quarterback spot over to the wide receiver position, especially because you're bringing in what's his name? Michael Tolleson, Butter Tolleson, to be the potential starting quarterback for you. They're bringing in Corey Butler. They're bringing in Mikey Scott, Uriah Nelms, excuse me. There is guys that you're bringing in for the future, which is great. You just need to continue to make sure that you're making that position deeper, especially with the odds that you lose a lot of the current players on this team. You also need to get depth at offensive tackle. You didn't bring in a guy who was listed as an offensive tackle. Champ Westbrooks is making that transition, but you need to get depth there. There's the possibility that you're losing several guys again. Bram Walden, who knows what's going on, a big year he could declare. Same with Jalen Clem. You will lose veterans like Emmett Bully. You could lose a guy like, of course, I can't remember his name. Our transfer coming in from Hawaii. Of course, I can't remember his name off the top of my head. You have good quality players at the offensive tackle position, but Josh Atkins, that's who I'm thinking of. But you need to continue adding players. This is a unit that is so pivotal to the success of your offense. You can't just risk not having guys there. And then edge rusher is the other position that I think turns into a need for you. You've got young guys. Roman Petrie is brought in through the transfer portal. You have Jamon Tapp is coming in through the transfer portal. You've got a guy like Ramar Williams who's coming in the recruiting class. But you're losing Elijah O'Neal, Prince Dorbaugh, and potentially Clayton Smith. So you need depth. Got to continue adding there. Those to me are the three spots that are true areas of need for the Sun Devils entering the 2025 recruiting class. But again, they've been proactive in trying to cover up for those needs. You just need to continue to make them points of strength for you. You're bringing in Deshaun Morgan along the defensive line. At the offensive tackle position, they were attacking it. You have two offensive tackles with Sean Bryant and Deshaun Morgan, or not Deshaun Morgan, excuse me, Alima Iusua and Rob Lapuaho. So they do have three offensive tackles coming in fairness. The Sun Devils are doing a good job in attacking those positions of need. You just need to continue to do it for 2025, for 2026, so on. These are the three positions of the biggest need. You were able to attack your secondary and make that position of strength. Interior line looks good, and your deep at running back. Next, we're going to talk about how many of these days or how many of these players could be day one starters and what's next for each recruiting class. This is the Locked On Sun Devils podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I love sports. I love them so much. I don't want them to stop, but we don't have playoffs and we're getting fewer games. Sports just aren't sporting like I want them to. But FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open up the app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. Plus, this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most of your summer. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. One more time, wherever you get your podcasts, hit like, hit subscribe, turn on notifications so you get an update whenever we post new content. Shout out to my everydayers who are here every day. And if you have not hit that subscribe button yet on YouTube, do me a favor and hit it. We're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers before the season starts. We're facing an uphill battle right now, but I know that the best fans in the world can absolutely get us to that mark, and we'll find a way to celebrate together. How many of these guys can start from day one? And it's an interesting conversation. This, to me, is another recruiting class that I think turns into developing guys behind the scenes, but there's still some really intriguing players. We'll start in the secondary. Outside of LT Welsh and Cole Martin, I think cornerback 2 is wide open, and I think that really the depth behind cornerback 2 is open for the team. Because even if Javen Robinson does get the corner 1 spot, you still have an open competition for the next guy behind him. Chris Johnson, again, he's someone I'm really intrigued by. Could end up being that person. Rodney Bimage has already made an impression. Tony Lewis and Nkuba has already made an impression. Plas Johnson has ball skills. He could really get the attention of Brian Carrington and Brian Ward and the rest of the defensive staff, maybe even Kenny Dillingham. I don't know if those guys are ready to start necessarily, but they still very much could because they're talented players. It's a secondary that's facing a big-time makeover. Possibility is there for the team. You could also see Jayden Fortier be a day one starter depending on his health. If he's 100% good to go, I promise you he's going to be a big-time impact player this year. as long as he's healthy. This is a player that you cannot justify keeping on the sidelines. At a minimum, by the end of the year, if he does play this year, we're going to be talking about him a lot. We're going to talk about him as a breakout player for 2025. Mark my words. I am planting my flag on this hill. Very big on Jayden Fortier. I already mentioned right guard is kind of an open competition right now with guys like Cade Briggs. Cade Briggs, God, who else is there? There's guys to work with to play at right guard. But Terrell Kim is someone that is really interesting to me. He's already 340 pounds. He's ready to go. He doesn't need to bulk up. He's a highly talented recruit. He was almost a 4-star kid. He is someone that could very easily, in my opinion, could very easily start at that right guard spot. We'll see what it ends up yielding for him. But potentially a starting tight end, potentially a starting right guard, and potentially a corner too, or some of the key depth for the position. I don't know that there is a path for really any of the other guys to be day one starters. Zachariah Sample could be your starting special teams player for what it's worth. I just don't know if he is able to usurp guys like Jordan Tyson and Melcon Stovall. I don't know that there's too many day one guys. Kenyon Floyd could be your starting punter. He was an actual 3-star recruit as a special teams player. That's a pretty big deal. And him and Ian Hershey are going to be the main competitors for the punting position. So Kenyon Floyd could start too. What's next for this 2024 class? First of all, you need to find a role for the key players. So Jason Brown, Jayden Fortier, Terrell Kim, and you can kind of shuffle in who you want. I would tell you my guys would be Chris Johnson, Kenyon Floyd, maybe Plas Johnson, Zachariah Sample, Zachariah Sample was my last guy. Potentially Bimage, potentially Nkuba. Those are the guys that I think are key players for this upcoming season and guys that I want to see find a role for themselves. Find some way to get them onto the field. Jason Brown is one of the more intriguing guys to me because the depth at running back is so crazy. I've said before, I'll say it again. You have 6 guys that you would be good with being your starting running back, and Jason Brown is one of them. But he could also be the 5th running or the 6th running back behind Scattaboo, behind Brooks, behind Raleek Brown. He could be behind Kyson Brown. He could be behind Alt McCaskill. This is a deep running back room. But nonetheless, he's one of those players that's so talented, you want to see what you got in him. He will get on the field this year. Absolutely will get on the field this year. But if he appears in 4 games or if he appears in 10, I don't really know. If he gets 10 carries or if he gets 50 carries, I don't really know. If he ends up being number 6 or if by the end of the year he's running back 3 or running back 2, I don't know. There is definitely a guy, though, that I want to see on the field. You also need to figure out how many guys are going to end up redshirting for you this year. Last year, there was a lot of guys that redshirted. You had a handful of guys that saw the field a lot, like Keith Abney and Kyson Brown. But as a whole, a lot of last year's recruiting class ended up taking a redshirt, which isn't a bad thing at all. In fact, I think it's a very good thing that you're taking your time with your recruiting classes because you have depth, you have veterans that they're able to learn behind. By 2025 or 2026, you could see a very young roster for the Sun Devils. We'll wait and see. But again, you need to identify some of the players that could benefit from having a year to get to understand the next level, understand their roles with the team, and just prepare them to eventually be starters for the team. But I don't know how many guys are going to be looking at a redshirt. For 2025, I think your recruiting class is about done, honestly. I don't know how many more guys ASU is going to be looking for in in their recruiting class. They've already got 19 commits, hard commits, verbal commits, with Adrian Wilson, AJ Aya as the possessions of the draft, as 4-star kids. This feels kind of like a done recruiting class. I would like to see them try and add another cornerstone, another 4-star if possible, but it's just about continuing to identify the depth and identify who is going to be the best fit for your team. Continue adding depth to the positions that we mentioned, and I think they are doing a good job of that. You are bringing in some wide receivers to replace guys that are going to be gone. You are bringing in depth in the secondary for guys that could be gone. You have your next quarterback if Sam Levitt either doesn't work out or just to be your QB2, because Jeff Sims and Trenton Bourget are done after this year. So you need somebody behind Levitt and behind Navi Bruzon potentially. So you bring that in with Michael Tollefson, and you have Cameron Dyer, although he's going to be transitioning to the wide receiver position. But who knows? It's just good to have that depth. There are definitely some very good players in next year's recruiting class. It's just a matter of continuing to add that depth. And then for 2026, you want to continue to add that depth as well. But that's where I stand on this 2024 recruiting class. That's where I think they can make their impacts. That's where I think you could see guys start, see guys redshirt, the guys who could find very big roles for themselves, guys who will be replacements in the future for veterans. What do you think of the recruiting class for this year? Let me know in the comments. You can hit me up on Twitter at Richie Bradshaw36, the podcast at LO_Sun Devils, wherever you're getting your shows. Hit like, hit subscribe, turn on notifications. Shout out to my everydayers who are here every day. Thanks for making us your first listen of the day. And again, if you have not hit subscribe on our YouTube page, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. Let's get to 1,000 followers before the season starts. Guys, you're the best. You're the number one fans in the world. We will be back again tomorrow. We are in full swing as Sun Devils are just about a month away from kicking off. Training camp is right around the corner, and I'll be sure to keep you guys posted on everything. Now it's never been a better time to subscribe to the podcast. So I'll see you all next time. And until then, you keep it locked right here on Locked On Sun Devils.